Alexi Lalas. I'm from Detroit, Michigan.
Fernando Clavijo.
Name's Kobe Jones.
I'm Mike Labyrinth.
I'm Brad Friedel from Cleveland, Ohio.
Janos Mihalik.
Thomas Dooley.
I'm Michael Burns.
Marcelo Balboa.
Claudio Reyna.
Desmond Armstrong. Columbia, Maryland, USA.
This is Hugh Perez.
Mike Sorber from St. Louis, Missouri.
Jeff Agus, Dallas, Texas.
I'm yours.
I'm yours. I'm yours.
Hi, I'm Peter Vermees. I'm from Darman, New Jersey. I'm yours.
Hello, Sunshine. Welcome to the State of the Union, presented by Yerba Madre, the boost you need when you want to win. Drink Yerba Madre. Come to life. I'm Alexi Lalas, and this is where we look at the beautiful game on and off the field through the lens of red, white, and blue-colored glasses. This show is live, as it will be throughout the Gold Cup, following each day of action. This show, we're going to review Day 4 and our first look at our friends from the Great White North, Canada, and we'll also preview Day 5 as we head into the second games of group play. But first, joining me as always, my friend, my colleague, my guiding light, David Mossy, a soccer savant and a Fox soccer researcher and writer extraordinaire. Mossy, how you doing on this Tuesday, June 17th in the year 2025?
I'm doing well. Did that opening make you emotional? Because this is a special anniversary for you, my friend.
It is. So for those that watch the show, you will have seen a bunch of different talking heads from a long, long time ago. 31 years ago today, the 1994 World Cup kicked off. Now, those players that you saw there, many of them were on that team. A couple of them weren't. And that was actually a photo shoot that we did a few months before the World Cup in the Cotton Bowl, as a matter of fact. And we did some B-roll and stuff like that. But it seems like yesterday, but it was 31 years ago. So 31 years ago today, I was sitting in a hotel room in Pontiac, Michigan, getting ready to play in the next morning, the first World Cup game. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but there was a lot going on that day. How are you, my friend? How you holding up here? We're getting into the tournament here.
I'm doing well. Yeah, no, going strong. It's been a fun tournament so far. Lots of goals, especially in Vancouver tonight, as we're going to discuss. So, yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Do you have, because those that listen and watch know that sometimes we talk about what we've watched and, this and that. Do you get any personal time, or is it just either working and sleeping with you during a tournament like this?
There are some gaps in the morning because our call times are a little bit later for the Gold Cup. So I've been able to walk down to my favorite coffee shop and relax for a little bit, drink a latte.
I was, in terms of our viewing, I was able to watch The Mayor of Mayhem, I think it's called. It just came out on Netflix. I think it's an hour documentary on Rob Ford, the Toronto mayor, that was just nuts. It is a wild, wild story. Recommend it. Like I said, it's just an hour. And so I was able to get up this morning and check that out.
There's a Netflix show, Department Q, that's been recommended to me. Evidently, it's a detective show based in Edinburgh, Scotland. So I will get around to that at some point this summer, I promise.
Okay, so let's see here. As I mentioned, today was 31 years ago. I'll finish the story here. So that day, the World Cup kicked off in Chicago. Back then, the home team didn't play on the first day. So that featured a game which was Germany against Bolivia, famous for a number of different reasons, not the least of which is Diana Ross in the pregame show, Mr. Penalty Kick, Oprah Winfrey. It was a big old craziness. And then actually on the field, Marco Echeverri, who many know from his starring days for DC United in MLS, Bolivian star, actually got a red card in that game. But that night, as many people that know history, myself and our team, we are in this hotel in Pontiac, Michigan, waiting to play the game the next morning. And because of the European time zone, our game was like at 11 o'clock in the morning the next day. And that night, if you remember, was the O.J. Simpson car chase. And so many of us were just staying up watching this and unable to go to bed because it was just drama unfolding in front of us. And so I was just sitting there watching and saying, I can't believe this is happening, but I can't go to bed because I have to see how this finishes. So I know exactly where I was tonight, 31 years ago.
Very kind of you to leave the Eric Winalda part out of that story.
Yes. So Eric Winalda was my roommate with the national team. But Eric Winalda got a hold of, I think it was called Powerade, which was one of the sponsors, energy drink type of thing. a recovery drink or whatever. And it had the red dye. We didn't have RFK, running around at that point. And the red dye, he had a reaction to it, and all hell broke loose because he was a starter. It was obviously very, very important. This was right before the World Cup. So much so they even moved him out of my room because they were worried maybe this is the flu. Don't worry, he recovered. And for those that remember, he went on to score a glorious free kick, which got us a point against Switzerland the next day.
I've mentioned this many times before, but one of my favorite 30 for 30s is the one they did chronicling that day, June 17, 1994. There was so much going on. Obviously, the O.J. Bronco chase, but you also had the start of the World Cup. You had the Rangers Stanley Cup parade, Knicks Rockets NBA Finals, Arnold Palmer's last round at the U.S. Open. Ken Griffey Jr. hit 3 home runs in a Major League Baseball game.
There was a lot going on.
Yeah.
So, and that's a wonderful documentary. All right. Should we get to the Gold Cup here?
Let's do it.
Now, Mossy, when we're doing a tournament, we recognize that, especially, these tournaments that have so many games and so many teams, they all can't be put into a time capsule as a representation of the beautiful game. So we're going to have some duds along the way. And I think you would agree with me that the Curaçao El Salvador game, and just because it finished 0-0 doesn't mean it can't be an exciting game. But this one not only finished 0-0, so there were no goals to be had, but also was, without a doubt, the worst game of the tournament so far. And yeah, you can blame the players, you can blame the teams, but there was just nothing going on. It was stop-start. Nobody really looking to take any chances, and it happens. It happens even to the best teams out there.
You know who agrees with you? Sean Sullivan, because he put in the rundown among one of the worst soccer matches I've ever laid eyes on.
Yeah.
And it's disappointing because we thought Curaçao could be frisky, and maybe they will in subsequent games, but certainly not today. The only thing I'll say about this match is last night I did a rundown of all the interesting managers at this tournament, and I left out Hernan Dario Gomez, Colombian who's managing El Salvador, who was an assistant with Colombia, Francisco Maturana.
Yep.
At the 94 World Cup, and then went on to manage Colombia at the 98 World Cup, Ecuador in 2002, and Panama in 2018. He's one of the few managers to have taken 3 different countries to a World Cup, and he's going to try to do it with El Salvador. But based on what I saw today, I don't know if they're going to make it.
No, that's not happening. I think it's going to be a real tough ask for El Salvador. I'm not talking about direct, even to get one of the 2 places that possibly play in the playoff game. But wonderful guy, by the way, if you ever get a chance to hang out with him. Really, really, really fun to meet, and just a fun person. So we're not going to spend a whole lot of time. I will say this: you know how I do my power rankings. We do power rankings of different things, and sometimes we think about what should we do, whether it's on the State of the Union or when we're on Fox, because people like power rankings and they like yelling at me and they like disagreeing with me, and I like doing them because it's a snapshot often of what's going on in the moment, and so we will continue to do them, but. If there was a jersey kit, whatever you want to call it, power rankings or something like that, while El Salvador was horrible today, they would be shooting to the top because I thought that their jerseys were just beautifully clean and simple, but not boring, and classic. And they had like the baseball jackets too. So I just thought they looked great. Did not play great, but they looked great. So they would probably be at the top of my power rankings right now.
Should we move on to the other
Let's
Group
do
B
it.
match? Because it was a very different story in Vancouver. Canada, no trouble scoring. They found the back of the net early and often. Segura opened the scoring. Oluwaseyi found the back of the net. Buchanan twice. Promise David came off the bench to get one. A very impressive opener for Canada at BC Place. A 6-0 win over Honduras. They look like a team that's very capable of winning this tournament.
So a couple of things. First off, just the location, right? We know that this is going to be a place where Canada is going to play next summer their games at BC Place, an indoor venue. I thought the ground, the grass that was put in there, looked great. It played great, and then you had the Canadian team come out. wasn't a packed house, but it was a raucous Canadian crowd. I would have thought it would have been more, but still they were loud, and obviously they were treated to plenty of goals. And I think from a Jesse Marsh and Canadian standpoint, this is exactly how you want to start. Announce your presence with authority, and they certainly did. Reminder that Jesse Marsh, because of the red card that he received in the Nations League after going crazy in that third place game, was given a 2-game suspension, and so he was up in the stands. We've seen this before with coaches and managers. Sometimes they actually I don't know if they prefer it, but it's a a strange silver lining in that they get to see their team, obviously, literally from a different vantage point, and sometimes they learn more about their team. But I think tonight, Jesse would have been sitting back saying, this is great. Do it. Keep doing whatever you're doing.
Luis Enrique, who just guided PSG to the Champions League crown, he's said that he would prefer to watch games from upstairs if he could. And, we were debating whether Jesse Marsch gets credited with this win on his record. It's a bit of a gray area. I recall in 2023, Jim Harbaugh was suspended for 6 of Michigan's 12 regular season games. 3 of them was a self-imposed suspension, so those did not count. 3 were a Big Ten suspension. Those did count. So it's always interesting from a researcher's perspective to try to navigate
you
those
get to
situations.
decide, and then we say it on television, and then it's, if we say it,
but
it's got to be true, right?
It is their biggest win since Jesse Marsch took charge. It's their second biggest ever Gold Cup win behind only a 7-0 over Cuba years back. So, yeah, there's no denying it. They made a statement tonight.
They did, but I think that there's also a connection and a linkage and a mirror to the U.S. Obviously, the U.S. came out 5-0. And I think that Honduras is a better team than the Dominican Republic. Than Trinidad and Tobago from an opponent standpoint. And I think Jesse and his team will let them celebrate as they should, but also bring them back to reality that's going to get harder. I do think, and Landon Donovan was on the desk with us tonight, and we were talking about what Canada is, what it isn't, how far it's come. I think it is theirs to lose in terms of the talent that they have. I think that they are the favorite for this tournament, regardless of what Jesse Marsch says, because he's trying to walk back some of the bravado that I actually love and want more of when it comes to Canada. As I told you last night, it's Canada, and for a long time they've just been kind of vanilla and nice, just Canada. But they have me interested, they have me invested, and part of that is the way that Jesse Marsch is going about his business, and the other part is they're producing on the field, and they have not just talent in terms of their first 11. They're putting like Schaffelberg off the bench and just a lot of depth, and so it really bodes well for the future of this tournament. And I said coming on the air tonight, even before this game, I said they are the favorites, and this is a moment that they have to capture and grasp with both hands. And I think if they don't win this tournament, it will be a failure. They'll go on and I think, and hopefully do good things next summer. But this is a moment for them to have the experience of saying we are the best, to have the experience of the confetti coming down and the music and holding up the trophy. And that is important because it gets to be something that you want and you know how to do it.
What's interesting, and if for those of you watching us, we just threw up a graphic that illustrates the point I'm about to make, is that while they have closer to a full-strength squad than the U.S. does, they're missing a lot of guys too. Bombito and Alphonso Davies are injured. Eustáquio is off playing for Porto at the Club World Cup. He has said if Porto get knocked out earlier than Canada, he might come and play in the Gold Cup at some point. Kone joined camp late, so he didn't play today. Kyle Larin and Schaffelberg didn't start. They came on as subs. Jonathan David didn't even score. He was involved, but and yet here they are really flexing their depth. 6-0. Landon Donovan was very impressed by their depth up front, rattling off all the different strikers. He thinks they're much stronger at that position than the U.S. right now.
I mean, he's absolutely right. I mean, when you're talking about Jonathan David and Kyle Larin and Oluwaseyi and Promise David, and this is a wealth of talent that they have. But when you juxtapose it with what the United States is doing and has done, I mean, we come up short. And this is why when we look at Balogun and Wright and Sargent and Pepe, and then you keep going, like Ferreras and the Vasquezes and stuff like that. That's why Ajiman out there, we are kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel, but we're desperate for someone to come along. And until that happens, we are going to continue to say, hey, next guy up. But we're talking with the Canadian team here, where there's going to be some really, really good players that aren't going to be able to even start for this team. I mean, we should be so lucky. And again, I go back to it's the summer of 2025, and this is where we find ourselves. And I know scoring is the hardest thing to do in the game. We were with Landon Donovan, who did it better than anybody that we've had in our history. But that Canada is able to have all of this depth of talent when it comes to scoring. And like I said, we are scraping the bottom of the barrel. Yeah, that's concerning. And it's highlighted when we watch a game like tonight.
You mentioned Promise David. He is the subject of our boost of the game tonight.
You know it is, my friend. All right, time now for the boost of the game presented by Yerba Madre. Yerba Madre, the boost you need when you want to win. Drink Yerba Madre and come to life. All right, so, I mentioned Promise David, and it's, is it something in the water? Are they doing something different than we're doing? Eric Winaldo, our friend, is always constantly talking about, because that was his job, to score goals, about what we are and what we aren't doing. I don't know if he has the answer. I certainly don't have the answer. But my kingdom for a Brian McBride or a Josie Altidore or like I said, an Eric Winaldo or a Landon Donovan, for that matter, because we don't have that. And when Jesse Marsch has at his disposal, someone like Promise David who comes on, who's just another one, not only does it give you confidence that in the depth that you have, but it creates competition. And we don't have enough of that when it comes to this U.S. team.
Yeah, Promise David, dare I say, a promising player. He is 23 years of age, coming off a very good season in Belgium. He scored earlier this month in a friendly against Ukraine and finds the back of the net tonight. So he's somebody that I could see really emerging for Canada moving forward.
Can we talk a little bit about Jesse before we move on here?
Yes.
Okay. I've said that, and I will continue to say, I really enjoy the way Jesse is going about his job. Okay, leaning in and being the heel, and I've told you that I love this personality. I love the way he's kind of deflecting onto himself, and I love the way that he is needling and poking in the things that he says, and then he, at times backtracks, but it's with a wink in everything that he's doing. He came out with another quote that I'd like to read here. This is from Jesse Marsch, the head coach of Canada. First, there's some dialogue like I'm addressing the U.S. team. That's not true at all. I want to make it clear. I don't care about the U.S. team, and I never want to coach the U.S. national team. I'm making that clear right now. As I said, I love Jesse Marsch. I do not believe you, Jesse Marsch. Suddenly, you don't want to coach the national team. Last year, when the job was open, and by all accounts, you were interviewed, and you did not get the job. You obviously wanted to be the coach then, and suddenly what? You've gone to the Great White North, and it's the best thing that you've ever you've done, and so much so that you never want to coach the United States. But I love the fact that he's saying this kind of stuff, because here we are. We're talking about Jesse Marsch has been a content creator for us in the business now, and we talked about this on the show today. He and his team have to back it up. And I think his team also understands that, which is why we're putting so much emphasis here on the Gold Cup. But we're also not going to let Jesse Marsch off the hook. He has, as I said, I think the best team here at the Gold Cup. Jesse Marsch has been given a lot of attention, and I think rightfully so. If we were to do a power rankings of the coaches here, I think I'd probably put Jesse Marsch at or close to the top. No, I'll put him at the top. Jesse Marsch there. Because you know what? I'm going to put some pressure on Jesse Marsch. I'm going to put some pressure on this Canadian team, because I'm still not completely sold that they can pull it off here at the Gold Cup with all the things that we've talked about here. But if you are as good as you say and as good as we think you might be, then you have to be able to function under this type of pressure and this type of attention and live up to the hype.
I agree with you. He is salty about not getting the U.S. job, and he does want to coach the U.S. someday, no matter what he says. We know the man currently coaching the U.S. is Mauricio Pochettino. We're approaching the U.S.'s second game of this tournament, Thursday night against Saudi Arabia in Austin. And Tyler Adams, Johnny Cardoso, and Damion Downs are back in training and will be available for that match. Pochettino has an interesting decision to make. The discourse on this has been fascinating the last couple of days. Is this a tournament where he should be rotating and getting a look at as many different players as possible? Or after a 5-0, would you repeat the same starting lineup? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, I think you run it back. I don't think that in the climate that exists today and in this moment that Mauricio Pochettino and this team can afford to experiment. Now, he might have had completely different plans as to what he was going to do with the Gold Cup, but then, all the drama with Christian Pulisic and all that, and, coming in with 4 losses and the 2 losses in terms of the preparation games against Turkey and Switzerland. I think Pochettino recognizes that he has to put his best foot forward, and his best foot involves the best players. But I think many of those players will be the same when it comes to the lineup against Saudi Arabia. And make no mistake, Saudi Arabia is not a Trinidad and Tobago, or this version of Trinidad and Tobago. This is a much better team. I think this is going to be a much better test. And if this team doesn't again rise to the occasion, then they risk destroying and undoing all the good that they did, all of this goodwill, all of this belief, all of this relief that they have kind of been living off of the last couple of days, all of the squelching of a lot of the, the controversy and that part of the narrative, that goes out the window. And so they risk regressing and maybe even going back further, because there are a lot of people that are watching this team and after that first game said, that's all fine and well, but it's against Trinidad and Tobago. And they're watching it with arms folded saying, all right, let's see what you can do now. And this is not a perfect team. This is not, as we said, the best team at the Gold Cup by any stretch of the imagination. And they're coming up against a team that has been at the previous World Cup, that is not from CONCACAF in Saudi Arabia, and will give them a much, much better game. And so let's see if these guys individually, whether it's a young, inexperienced player like Ajiman, or whether it's the introduction of someone like Tyler Adams, that they step up and they parlay that first game into another game. And in doing so, again, push more of that stuff away and develop some momentum going forward.
In preparation for Thursday's game, I was researching the series history between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia, and I found an incredible match in 1995, a friendly in which you guys were down 3-0 and came back to win 4-3, and you started the comeback scoring off a set piece.
Wow. Let me see if I remember that. Maybe D.C., does that sound right? Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, and I believe we're going to show that goal on TV in the pregame on Thursday.
Well, so. I mean, my goals are few and far between. So if and when we have the opportunity to have any type of connection with what's going on in the field, you damn well better believe we're going to do it. But we played Saudi Arabia a bunch of times. I think we played them at Rutgers once, and I think we even went to Saudi Arabia if I remember correctly. So it's a good team and it's a good test.
Yeah, 7 all-time meetings, 5 friendlies, and then 2 in the Confederations Cup. I know we want to pivot away from the missing players, but I have to bring this up.
Okay.
Today at the Club World Cup, Fluminense played Borussia Dortmund. Fluminense, by the way, played Dortmund off the field, but it ended up being a 0-0 draw. And it did not go unnoticed by U.S. fans that Gio Reyna was an unused sub in this match. So he's not at the Gold Cup, he's at the Club World Cup, and yet he's not getting on the field. I continue to say, when you parse out the avoidable absences from the unavoidable this summer, a lot of people putting Gio in the unavoidable camp because of the Club World Cup. I don't buy it. I think if U.S. Soccer had pushed, Gio Reyna would be at the Gold Cup right now.
That's why you're here, David Mossy, to give these informed and interesting and nuanced takes that you can't find anywhere else. I hope people appreciate it, and I know they do. I mean, when I travel, the amount of people that will come up to me and want me to send their best wishes to you and tell you how much they appreciate everything you do, and I think that was just another example of a wonderful, wonderful take there. And I think you're absolutely right. And what really would have been interesting, though, is if Dortmund said, we're not taking him, and then Mauricio Pochettino said, well, neither are we. I mean, well, anyway, we'll see ultimately what happens with Gio Reyna and that whole saga that's going on. Your Brazilian teams and your South American teams are doing very well in this Club World Cup so far, but you made it very, very clear last night that we're not supposed to take anything out of it. We're not supposed to use it as a referendum on anything when it comes to a league or a culture or a country when it comes to how they play, right? But I would think that your countrymen and women down there are already off and running and using this, right?
Very excited, yeah. No, I'm definitely the outlier in preaching patience here, because my timeline on X is all Brazilians gloating about how this proves that European soccer is overrated and the Brazilian league is the greatest in the world. So those conversations are happening. Now back to the Gold Cup. Tomorrow we're back at it. We have a Group A doubleheader, both games at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Costa Rica against the Dominican Republic, and then Mexico looking to make it 2 wins out of 2. They face Suriname.
Doubleheader, right?
Yeah.
And Dallas. And when I say Dallas, I mean Arlington, right? So they're gonna host. I can't remember what it is. 12 games next summer, and for a lot of people, they thought that was where the final is going to be. Again, indoor, climate controlled, so it's going to be perfect conditions.
I put Dallas in the script tonight, and Rob Stone changed it to Arlington, and I had to explain to Rob that coming off that Miami show we did, I have FIFA on the brain, so I'm calling Santa Clara the San Francisco Bay Area. MetLife is New York/New Jersey.
It's adjacent and the metropolitan area and all that kind of stuff. All right, so Mexico, obviously, we saw get the win, but make it a little interesting in their first game. Do you think that Mexico right now is behind Canada in terms of, I mean, it's still early days, but right now, when you were looking at who your money would be to win this thing?
Yeah, it's very close. You know what? They're not the most impressive team, Mexico, but I think Javier Aguirre has reinstilled this knack for getting results. So if my life on the line, Mexico versus Canada, I think I'd actually slightly lean Mexico.
Yeah, and Aguirre in his press conference today, was saying all the things that you expect, including some of the things that we say, where he recognizes that they want to peak as they get to the tournament and get to the end of the tournament and get better and better and better. And even though they won the first game and scored goals, it was too close for comfort. And I think he wants to see a much better performance in the second game.
Yeah, just in terms of style points, you see the U.S. win 5-0, Canada win 6-0, even Panama. I know you weren't overly impressed with their performance, but just from a scoreline standpoint, 5-2. So I think Mexico does want to make a statement here and win comfortably against Suriname just to kind of flex their muscles, just like some of these other teams did.
First game, Costa Rica against Dominican Republic. Who do you got?
I like Costa Rica.
Okay.
I think it's going to be a wild one, though. I mean, we saw against Suriname 4-3 late, and then we saw the Dominican Republic are frisky. They've got some players you like who you included in your top 10 countdown, so that could be a fun game.
And, some of the desperation and the need to get points in this second game, because if you don't, that starts to play as we start to see these second games happen. And for some teams like the United States, the opportunity in 2 games to already assure yourself moving forward is there. And you got to make sure you take it off the table and don't let anybody grab it from you. And if you can do it in 2 games, get it done in 2 games. Anything else, Smalls?
I do want to acknowledge tonight was a mixed bag for director Gabe.
Okay.
An impressive victory for Canada, but the Stanley Cup drought continues for our friends up north because the Florida Panthers prevailed against the Edmonton Oilers. So I believe it goes back to 1993 since a Canadian team won the Stanley Cup.
Wow. I grew up in the suburbs of Detroit, and obviously our connection to Canada is well known. I mean, literally, we're right across the border. I used to go into Canada, and we used to go to the Windsor Ballet. And for those that are from around there, know what I'm talking about there. But there was just incredible connection. But I remember growing up, and Saturday nights, because we could get the Canadian television stations, Saturday nights I would watch CBC and I watch Hockey Night in Canada, and I would set myself up with my potato chips and my root beer and the television because I was just a huge hockey fan. So congratulations to Florida again, and congratulations to America for once again retaining the Stanley Cup and not letting our friends to the Great White North have it, even though they have given so much to me and so many others out there when it comes to the game of and the sport of hockey. Anything else, my friend?
That's it.
All right. We will be back again tomorrow, like we said, with all these games and a wrap-up and a review and a preview. Keep downloading, keep reviewing, keep subscribing, keep pounding those buttons out there, left, right, up, down, over there on the old YouTube machine. Subscribe, Spotify, Apple, X, all the different places over there that you get the State of the Union. We really appreciate everybody that has been here over the years and everybody that's coming into the State of the Union tent right now. We'll be back again tomorrow. Until then, and as always, my friends, oh, by the way, thank you to Yerba Madre. Thank you to Yerba Madre. Thank you to Yerba Madre. Get yourself some. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Until then, and as always, my friends, size the day.